Hello, this is Vincent from the Aethermaths, and today we are reviewing the soundtrack for the musical Rent is a musical that's very near and dear to my heart. I used many of the songs in Rent as audition pieces whenever I was auditioning for musicals back whenever I was in school. It holds a special place to me. It holds a special place. So I am coming here with a little bit of bias, but also knowing the history of Rent also makes me be like, I really love this musical. I really have a soft spot for this one. And talking about the history of Rent, it was made by Jonathon Larson, who also made Tick Tick Boom, which is a fantastic musical, especially the movie. The movie is wonderful. And he made Tick Tick Boom, and he also made Rent. And right before Rent got big and popular, he passed away, which is really, really tragic, but it also really goes to show that, like, man, I think he really went out on a high note. So before I start talking about the Rent's music itself, I do want to mention that I find the story very good, but it's not the biggest thing I'm factoring here. I think whenever I listen to albums and how albums are going to be ranked on this channel, is that I usually put the music above the story of the album itself, because if the songs don't sound good, I can't rank it that high, especially since we're talking about music mostly. But the good news about Rent is that the songs sound good anyway, so I'll have many positive things to say about it. So, talking about the things that I really liked about this musical, it's very good when watched together. I think honestly, almost all the track except Over the Moon, specifically that track, I'll just go ahead and say is probably one of the worst tracks I've heard in a musical. I really do not like Over the Moon at all, and also the character isn't very likable as well. So, boo, Over the Moon. I will not. I don't want to hear anything about cows and udders or anything like that. No, thank you. No, thank you. But aside from Over the Moon, I think every single other song in the musical flows pretty much very well together. Although the one criticism that you can pick out is that some of like the songs you can tell are there just for progression. You could really tell that if you removed it and put it on like a playlist with other songs that you like. So I think some of the songs not having that flexibility can be a lower point for those specific songs. And the reason why I like Mark's and Roger's songs so much specifically is that I feel like they have such a really good rock and roll voice, but also I feel like that their voices are some of the most flexible in the musical, because I feel like Mark, right, he does a killer job on the one of the opening tracks, Rent, right? Uh, but you get to the Tango Maureen, or him and Joanne are singing, and it flows so well together because they both have this like perfect tango voice, even though, like, in my opinion, it doesn't feel like that they were even going that way at all, right? Especially musically. So I feel like musically, almost any song that Marker and Roger is in, I really, 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 really enjoy it. Colin's songs are also pretty good as well. And those are some of the highlights of the musical. Also, and like I said, I'm not factoring it mainly, but the story is heart wrenching, and I think it's very good. So overall, I really like Rents on a musical level. The only bad thing about the musical is Over the Moon, terrible song. Do not like that song, really bad. There's very few mediocre songs on the tracks. I mean, like Finale B, like, like stuff like that. If you want to see my opinions on each of the tracks, track by track, you can check the description down below. I made a review of each song on there. So if you want to see my more detailed thoughts, they're there for you. But otherwise, I'm more so in the positive opinion on this musical, and I view it very highly, and I love it. I loved it for years. But I will go ahead and pass it over to Jace.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Vincent, for passing along the mic. So today we're reviewing Rent. It is honestly probably one of the better musicals that I've watched in a while. Then again, I also don't watch a lot of musicals. But even then, this entire soundtrack is just filled with these iconic songs that just sound good. To me, it's also just filled with a lot of repetitiveness and just things that kind of egged me on the entire time. And typically what we do is we would give a like track by track because we want to like go in deep discussion about this album, but there are 28 tracks, a lot of them being transitional, and it's just not really feasible for us to like do each one of them one by one. So what we're going to do is just talk about the highs and the lows of the soundtrack, because while there are a lot of songs on here that I really enjoy, there is a lot of just really low on this album for me. So starting off, some of the most important songs that I found on this album were Seasons of Love, because you just can't really match that iconicness that this entire song gives you with the whole like 525, what is it, like 525,600 minutes. And even then, I mean, it features a lot of really good songs. You get one song, Glory, Tango Marine, Life Support Another Day, I'll Cover You, and I don't really know how to say this one, but La Vie Boheme, Boheme, Bohemi, something along those lines. Even "Take Me or Leave Me" is another really good song. It's just outweighed by the number of songs that I'm like I can't really stand. Even like the title track "Rent" is just very ear grindy because of how repetitive it sounds. And don't even get me started on "Over the Moon" because that song I would be happy if that it's never played again in all of human history. Even still, I think there was a lot of good and a lot of risk taken with this musical. I think personally, Jesse L. Martin had one of the best story arcs musical, and my only real complaint is they had too much going on for it to really matter about all of these different characters they were trying to introduce. You had the whole Rent storyline, you had the AIDS storyline, you had Jesse L. Martin and Wilson Germain, very good actors. They played the part perfectly, in my opinion. I honestly can't complain about their roles. They were what made the entire musical for me. But even still, I feel like there's a lot to discuss in between the highs and the lows, and there's just not a lot of middle. But that being said, we still have a whole discussion part of this video to get to, so let's pass it on over there. So we're back with the debate portion of this, and I just want to say before I get into my ranking, or my personal ranking, I should say, the entire album was kind of repetitive for me to really enjoy on like a track by track basis. I found myself skipping through a lot of the songs to really hit the ones that I really liked. I think the song really peaked with "I'll Cover You." I think that was probably like my favorite song on the album. I think Jesse L. Martin had the best story arc in the entire musical. My biggest complaint with the entirety of the musical was there was just too much going on. You had the AIDS epidemic, you had the entire like landlord rent situation, and on top of that you also had like a bunch of side plots involving Maureen, or whatever the stripper girl's name was. I can't ever fucking remember all these.
Elsa. It's Elsa. It's
Was
fucking
it Elsa? I don't fucking know.
I forgot we can't swear. It's Elsa, Jace. It's Elsa. It's literally. I'm not even joking. It's Elsa. Look up the actor.
So I think with all of that due, the highest I could possibly rank this musical is like a like low C tier.
Oh, all right. So here's a couple of my pushbacks, right? So I do agree with you for the fact that like the biggest downside of this musical is Elsa, like the character. Because I think I will say this. Here's something that I really like. I know that you mentioned like there's so much going on as a downside. I actually think that's really interesting about the musical because it makes it feel like such a lively world. Because let's think about real life, right? Real life isn't focused like that. There's so many different aspects going on, right? And I feel like that's a really fascinating thing. And that's something that I like from the musical, that it isn't super focused, but it all kind of culminates together at the end, right? So that's something that I really enjoyed. But I do agree that the issue is that the musical wasted time on Maureen, who's I like I said, maybe there might be like some Rent fans who are like, ooh, Maureen, right? She sucks. Like she's like an objectively like bad person, but the musical doesn't really like, and the musical kind of like highlights her depravity, right? But it feels like it by the end you're like, oh yeah, look, she's so awesome and lovable and part. No, she sucks still. She still sucks.
So like my biggest problem with Marine as a character is at the very beginning they keep talking about this character where it's like, oh, Mark's still not over Marine. Mark's still got like this deep love for Marine. Like she's dating the lawyer girl Joanne. Like they keep talking up this character. You get introduced to her for the first time by Tango Marine, which is a fantastic song. Some of my favorite songs on this album have just been like the off-pace ones that aren't really exclusively rock. But even still, they like talk up this character to be like this awesome. She's got some like bad habits, but she's like killing it, whatever. And then you're introduced to her officially by Over the Moon, and it kills everything for this character, and she only goes more and more downhill from there. Honestly, the only song that I've actually appreciated her like style in was Take Me or Leave Me. That was probably the only time where I was like, hell yeah, this is actually really banging. But that's only because Joanne's fucking like over her.
Yes, and also not gonna lie, actually, they actually both kind of kill it in that song, and
Hmm.
also in like like also in the prelude to that as well. Just like we used to have this fight each, and like I actually really enjoyed the fight scene between the couples, right? Because I felt like it was really coming in all the storylines were kind of coming in all together there. And like I said, I like rock and roll. It was all kind of coming together in this like rock and roll badass kind of way, and I felt like that was a really big like high point for me in the musical, right? I really, really enjoyed that part. And "Take Me or Leave Me" is, like I said, probably the only good song with Maureen on it.
Yes.
Unfortunately for Maureen. So I agree with you there. I would love to hear what's your thoughts on La Vie Boheme.
I didn't hate that song. I'll just make that clear right now. I actually think that out of all of the musical takes, I think this was the most interesting song on the entire album, just because of how it incorporates all of like the characters you're introduced to through the musical in like one cohesive song. And then I
Yes,
think it's even more interesting that they break up the song into two different parts because it's got like that middle interlude in between where like the Labi Mahim, I'm never going to say that correctly. Don't worry about it. But it's got like the beginning part and then you've got like the interlude and then it's got the ending, which is a very interesting like stagnant way to like layer it.
yes, yes, and I agree with you. Honestly, the only bad part is that the only bad part about, and I the only reason why I'm mentioning this track is that I know this track is a favorite by many, right? And especially by people who like are super into musicals. Because if you look at the video of this of like the Broadway musical, right? If you look at that, there's so much choreography going on. It's all really insane and just like it's seen as the highlight of the musical by
Mm-hmm.
many, right? Uh, and the thing is, I really, really like the song, and I like the things that Jace mentioned. I do not like the flow into the next song. I will stand strong on that.
Yeah.
I just think it's kind of lame. And I love La Vie Boheme, but that's the only reason why I can't say it's my favorite track on the musical. I'm gonna be honest. My favorite track on the musical is one that isn't really seen as a favorite to many. It goes into the repetitiveness that Jace was talking about. Some people mention at this point in a musical, from what I've seen, right? "What You Own" is my favorite because I feel like I like rock and roll, and I feel like "What You Own" pretty much did it the best. And I love the culmination of storylines. I feel like that's like Roger getting back into it, and I will stand strong on this. And I think I've said this a couple of times. Any song with Roger on it and Mark kind of already like there for me because like I don't know how to describe it. Like maybe it's like like not to compare to two people the same name. Like I don't know how to describe his voice. It's like a little bit of Roger Daltrey, but a little bit of that grunge at the time. I don't know how to describe it, but it's really good. I really like his voice.
Like I said, my favorite track on it was "I'll Cover You," just because I feel like Jesse L. Martin and I can't remember who played Angel in the movie, but both of them had like this really good chemistry from the very first moment Angel was introduced to like the cast, and it kind of accumulated through all of the different like portions of where they kept getting in to see more and more about how AIDS was affecting Angel, because I feel like they use Angel as like this catalyst for how AIDS epidemic is affecting America, and it works out really well because whenever Angel dies you can see just how heartbroken Jesse L. Martin's character is at like the end of the movie. And it's even worse because once he dies everything just starts falling apart for the friend group, and I feel like a lot of the emotional turn comes from Al Covery.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And there's something else that's a highlight of the musical that you can kind of see through each song is that honestly, and this is gonna sound like I said, it's gonna sound a little crazy. I feel like that the main couple we are supposed to be focused on in quotation mark is Mimi and Roger. But
Mm-hmm.
to be honest, I don't think they flow entirely the best with each other. I've seen the musical adaptations, right? I think actually the musical ones they have a little bit more chemistry. The music, the ones in the movie, like not as much from what I've seen, anyways. But when you get to Collins and Angel, in most of the musical versions and in the movies versions, you can just there's so much chemistry there,
Mm-hmm.
and it sounds like that doesn't really feel like they're actors, right? They just
Yeah.
and I think it's because I'll be honest, I think it's because most of the songs that are written between them, right, are just like I said, not entirely my style, but very well written
Mm-hmm.
is the best way to say it. They're all incredible. Like the writing was on, like the pen was on fire for most of their songs. Because like I will say this, you can even kind of get into Santa Fe, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
Another great song of Collins and Angels, right?
Mm-hmm.
Santa Fe is good. Like I said, not my vibe, but it's a good song. We'll open up a restaurant. I don't think people signed up for my singing, so I'm gonna stop that.
Yeah.
Look,
Like,
Jace, we're losing our 2 viewers.
oh no. With that being said, how would you rank this on your personal ranking?
Honestly, here's how I feel about it, right? As a musical, I actually do feel like it's in the A tier, but we're thinking about it purely from a soundtrack standpoint, like a musical standpoint. I'm not factoring in the story as much because I think the story is very meaningful, and I really like that it's kind of a mess because real life is a mess, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but if you're thinking about it from a pure like, does this sound good? Do I like the sound of this? Right? I have to break it down by there's like I wouldn't include half of these soundtracks in any future playlist, and then like split it in half basically, then take like a half of the half of like what I'd actually really vibe and listen to, and that's kind of where we're left at. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that there's a lot of other albums who have less songs, right, in the grand spectrum, but the songs are all like bangers to
Mm-hmm.
me,
Yeah,
right?
I can
While I
absolutely
feel like
agree.
that even if you reduced this to the best songs and then made it an album length, still probably wouldn't resonate with me as much as like some of my favorite albums of all time. The sad thing to say is that this musical, like I said, as much as love and bias that I have for this musical because I grew up with this one, right, I can't see myself ripping these songs and considering them some of the best I've ever heard. The best songs are above average to me on the grand spectrum. I would probably go low B,
Mm-hmm.
and I would.
So, with that being said, I think the only way we can actually honestly rank this is by just putting it into the C tier for both of us. Because I think we both have a lot about this album that we enjoy. That being said, I think it's two completely different sides of the album because I liked more of the off pace songs and you liked more of the rock and roll. And with it being a rock musical, it completely makes sense that that's where you'd fall in line with it. I think that the only right place to put it between the two of us would just be to keep it at a C tier.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I agree with you. Shout out to another song that I want to mention just real quickly. Out Tonight is very good. I do like Out
I
Tonight.
was not a fan of Out Tonight at all.
Hater. I'm a hater.
I
But like,
could
okay,
not I
I'm
could
just
not
kidding.
care less. Whenever fucking Mimi kept going like put out my candle, I was like, please, for the love of God, just leave this man alone. He is grieving.
I like said.
Go immediately back to One Song Glory. Like that's all I need.
Oh wait, One Song Glory. Oh my god, I didn't mention that. That song is so good. That song, One Song Glory. Like
Yeah,
that song is.
it was such whenever Mimi's on stage for me, her singing, she's a great singer. It was just a complete change of like the songs that I like it was just
That,
a
that,
different vibe.
I mean, I will say this. I have a hot take. By the way, we have a lot to say because there's over 20 tracks. By the way, guys, so
Yes.
we have a lot to say. We spent like 2 hours listening to this, so we're saying a lot. But actually, I have a hot take. Light My Candle's not that good. I
No,
actually don't
no,
like
not at
Light My
all.
Candle. I get it for the sake of pacing, right? But just like, eh.
The song overstayed its welcome, and then on top of that, I understand it was supposed to be like a symbology of Roger like trying to like fall in love again, but like this girl's very obviously got her own issues that's kind of deemed a little bit more manipulative at the time of like where the musical is, and it just doesn't operate well coming off of One Song Glory. It was supposed to be like Roger being like, I'm gonna step back up, I'm gonna get back into what I love doing, and then she comes in and it just completely derails what he was gonna go back into doing. And then he
Yeah.
leaves. My biggest problem is at the very end he leaves like the city and he goes like west to like fulfill his dreams. And then years later he's like, I gotta go back because that's where Mimi is.
Yeah. Uh, I will say this. I have a song that I also didn't really care for, but I found funny. I will give it funny points. Today for you, just like this is like Angel's like
Mhm.
lower point in my opinion. Like I know it's supposed to be his introduction. I think it introduces his character well, but this is where it just doesn't sound good. Is the issue with Today for you? It doesn't really sound that good. It's funny. Like it's kind of funny that like I think the instrumentation is actually really unique,
Mhm.
right? In a very like like I'm like damn, all right, and then the vocals, and I'm just like, oh, actually this is not too great
Well,
on this one,
okay, so like
unfortunately.
the biggest problem with the vocals is like Angel was 100% just telling a story because Angel does have good songs and Angel the actor who played Angel can definitely sing. But I don't think that's
Mhm.
kind of the vibe they were going for here because of the way he was like talking about like making the deal with the woman and then also like killing a lady or like whatever whatever the fuck was going on during that entire song, because it didn't really make it clear on who died, but they made it very clear somebody died.
Yes, yes. Honestly, the only other song I want to highlight before I end this video, really popular with the Rent fan base, "Seasons of Love,"
Mhm.
right? And there's a lot of historical significance behind this song, for me, anyways, right? Is because right before we did any shows, we always got together and sang this song specifically. Any show for any musical, we always sang this song specifically. But listening back to it, I get it, and I think it has a lot of meaning, right? I don't have this
Yeah.
strong. Like, sorry for the Red fan that there. "Season to Love" is a beautiful song, right? I would never casually listen to this one, but the female, the female vocals on this is extremely good and goes insane. I will say that the females, like the female voices, good. The men,
Well, my biggest takeaway with Seasons of Love is I felt like it was an excellently written song. I feel like they did a lot of things right from like a musical standpoint. My biggest issue with it is that it just didn't fit in with the rest of the musical. Like
I
there was still like context of why it was important, but it just didn't latch on to like the how all the other songs kind of built off of each other.
I think that makes sense. I only offer a slight disagreement here in the factor of I think that's the point. It's supposed to be like an overview of what to expect. That's how
Yes.
I always say it, right? Just being like it's basically it's preheating.
Hmm.
It's preheating your hot pocket at 3 a.m. In the middle of the night, right?
Yes.
That's what it's doing for the musical, and I think it does a fine job at it.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's just a song. Like we're thinking about it from an album musical standpoint, right? And just probably would never casually listen to it for my sake.
Yes.
That's the take I have on it. But it is beautiful, and also, like I said, I love the female voices on it, the female vocals. Uh, anyways, that is all. I guess it's time for wheel time. Wheel time, yay!
So what are you expecting to see out of this wheel spin?
I have I don't know why it's giving us journey. It's giving us a journey, and we're going to deal with it. We're gonna like three songs off the album. It's gonna
I
be
kind
fun.
of hope we get a Gorillaz album, honestly.
That's fine.
I've been listening to a ton of Gorillaz this week because I'm getting prepared for the new album coming out later on this month. And trust me, guys, whenever I say this, I am forcing Vincent to listen to the album the second it comes out because we have to make a video on that because it is the most anticipated album for me for the year.
Yes. All
But
right.
without further ado, let's get right to the spin.
Will it land on something Jace put on the wheel?
All right, you
Kind of.
know,
That's actually wait no actually wait the beat. Oh my god wait actually
we
no
got a
this is
Beatles
kind of
album.
me. I will say this. I will say this. Just going into this, right? From my history of the White Album, I remember like not loving it, but I haven't re-listened to it in like 6 years, so I'm fine with it. I'm
This
glad we
is
got a Beatles album.
this
I'm
is one
glad
of
we got a
the
Beatles album.
this is one of the albums I actually haven't listened to by the Beatles. I've listened to a good number of them, but I have not listened to this one.
But anyways, the White Album. So I guess we'll see you guys next time for the White Album.
So guys, if you guys have any other suggestions for albums we should put on the wheel, please make sure to comment it. We will always be adding new albums to the wheel as we go on. So yeah, just keep us updated. We love to expand and see the music taste of our viewers. Thank you guys for
Absolutely.
watching.